Star Wars 7x7, episode 1856. Let's talk about Rey's Jedi training and the state it will be in at the start of the Rise of Skywalker. Let's go! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and here's the recap, alright? So what we do know for sure with the Rise of Skywalker is that Rey's Jedi training is quote-unquote almost complete. We still don't know for sure how long it is in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, okay? I know there have been reports saying it's only a year. I've not seen it substantiated. I don't feel like that's confirmed. And even at Celebration Chicago, when they had a chance to say one way or the other, they didn't. They said some time has passed during the panel for The Rise of Skywalker. So, yeah, don't think it's a year. Think it's more. How much more? Don't necessarily know, but suffice to say, her Jedi training is nearly complete. And as you'll recall from The Last Jedi, she took the books from the Jedi tree, if you will, on Ahch-To, the sacred Jedi texts. She took them with her when she left the planet. And Yoda did say that there was nothing in the books knowledge-wise that Rey didn't already possess. Now, this could just be a wink to the fact that Yoda knew that she took the texts with her, and so it's not a matter of that she actually knows it right now. It's just that, haha, I'm goofing around with you, Luke. She actually took the books before it all blew up. So that's how she actually possesses the knowledge. And from the Star Wars comics, particularly the final arc in the Poe Dameron comic book series, we know that Rey is working with C-3PO to translate the text of these sacred Jedi texts. And then, of course, there's that infamous opening line from the teaser where the Force Ghost, presumably, of Luke Skywalker says, "We've taught you everything we know. 1,000 generations of Jedi live in you now." So that actually implies that Rey has been undergoing additional Jedi training at the hands of Force Ghosts, potentially, because what other Jedi is there to actually train her? It's not a live one at this point. And Luke Skywalker was seen as the last Jedi. Maybe there are people who are trained in the light side of the Force, but who are not Jedi necessarily. Maybe that's a possibility. But yeah, Force Ghost training, it's certainly possible. And I gotta say, once Order 66 happened and the Jedi were all but wiped out, training, got a little bit more informal, a little bit squirrely. And even before that happened, things were already sort of breaking down to some degree. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi, as an example, was taken into the Jedi Temple at the age of 3, which was considered very late by comparison. They were usually taken before they had even turned a year old. That's what the general Jedi way was. And when Obi-Wan was promoted from Padawan to Jedi Knight, he was ready to take the trials, at least that's what Qui-Gon had said. But there was no indication of when it was actually planned for it to happen, and according to the Master and Apprentice novel by Claudia Gray, it was sort of done in the field as not a last-minute thing, but as a matter of necessity, because ultimately the Council was going to let Obi-Wan train Anakin, which would mean that Anakin would become Obi-Wan's Padawan, but he would have to be a Jedi Knight in order to have a Padawan, so they had to accelerate him taking the trials, and they gave him what she calls in the novel the equivalent of a field promotion, if you will. And he was 25 years old when that happened, so roughly 22 years of training, and that might not necessarily have been how long it should have taken, and we don't even know if that's average anyway. Meanwhile, you look at Luke Skywalker and, yeah, basically learned, oh my gosh, I have Force powers at 19 years old. At 22, he's still kind of, like he can make his lightsaber jump into his hand. That's pretty impressive. And somehow he's able to fly, probably in the same way that Anakin before him was able to fly a pod racer and do things that normal humans couldn't do because he was so strong in the Force. And so maybe that's why Luke was so good flying, but that's not a conscious thing. That's not a control of the Force, if you will. And he studied for what? The rough estimate is 6 months with Yoda, right? And obviously he wasn't ready to face Darth Vader at that point. Makes sense, but it was only a year after the events of Empire Strikes Back when he returned to Yoda, and Yoda said, "You've got to face Vader, and then, and only then will you be a Jedi," and meaning in particular a Jedi Knight, which would be equivalent to where Obi-Wan was when he got promoted at the end of The Phantom Menace. Definitely not a 22-year process, for sure. So where does that leave Rey? And how does it tie into what we were talking about yesterday about the whole question of a potential romantic relationship with Ben Solo and or the redemption of Ben Solo and her training? Well, we'll talk about that after the break. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact, the premier email marketing solution for small businesses and organizations. I've used their service since 2003, and over the past decade and a half, I've watched them evolve, make the product simpler, more powerful, easy to use, and do everything that they can to help train people to use the product more effectively and for it to work with other forms of marketing like social media, for example. So check out sw7x7.com/email to learn more about Constant Contact and start a free trial. Once again, that is sw7x7.com/email for a free trial. Welcome back. So, one thing that we will recall from The Last Jedi is that in order to become a Jedi Knight, Yoda said you will have to face Vader again. And he didn't necessarily know how that was going to turn out, but he knew that he would have to face Vader and do it in a way that he didn't fall to the dark side himself. Whether that meant defeating him or not, well, that's up for debate. I mean, he could have done what he needed to do, faced Vader, conducted himself in the manner of a Jedi, and died a Jedi Knight. Like, that's certainly a possibility for what could have happened. Ultimately, of course, Anakin decided to come back to the light, and maybe that was Yoda's plan all along, that really it's not just you have to face Vader again, but really for him to become a Jedi Knight was for him to redeem his father. That seems like it's a little bit much, to be honest with you. That seems like it's really excessive, but to be able to face Vader and to do it in a way that was a fully realized Jedi way of behaving and not going over to the dark side in order to defeat him, yeah, that's probably what we're talking about. And so apply that to Rey and the fact that we know that Rey and Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo, are going to have a fight scene, at least one, at the at some point in The Rise of Skywalker. We've seen still images of it from the Vanity Fair issue that came out earlier this year, and there was a brief shot in the 1 minute behind the scenes video that they showed where they showed the outside of the water tank where they filmed some of those scenes, and you see water splashing like crazy, and that's great. But beyond that, don't really know. But at some point she's gonna have to say, hey, is my training done? And somebody's going to have to tell her, and it's probably going to be Luke, I would imagine, unless they want to throw in some surprises for us. But somebody's going to have to tell her, you're going to have to face Kylo Ren again. And then, and only then, will she be able to say that she is a Jedi. Or if they decide to start calling Jedi Skywalker, I know I just used Jedis like that, and I'm not supposed to. You know what I meant, though. Jedi is singular and plural, right? They decide to call Jedi Skywalkers instead, then, that's what I'm getting at, basically. But anyway, yeah, that's where I think it could end up going. And tomorrow we'll talk about Kylo Ren and his training. But for today, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.